Hello there. Welcome to the Light Story Club. Settle in and find a comfy spot to relax. Before we get to the story, I would love to know your favorite myths and monsters. Comment where in the world you are and let's begin the story. There was warmth before there was light. It wrapped around me like an ancient lullaby, pulsing gently with each slow breath of the mountain. I did not yet have eyes to open, nor limbs to stretch, but I felt everything. The gentle thrum of lava flowing beneath, the rhythmic crackle of shifting stone above, and the soft hush of wind that sometimes whispered through the cracks of our nest. I was curled within my egg, smooth and strong, a shell of obsidian streaked with amber lines that glowed faintly in the dark. I did not know what I was then. Not quite alive, but not asleep either. I existed in a quiet in-between, a warm and dreaming place where time didn't pass as it does now. I began to dream before I was born. The first dream was of wings. Great, golden wings stretching far above clouds, catching starlight as they moved. I felt them as if they were mine, as if I already knew the wind's song. My little heart stirred. I twitched. A ripple passed through the thick amber that surrounded me. Outside, something shifted. A rumble deeper than sound. A voice. No, not a voice, something older. A presence that pressed gently on the outside of my shell. It was the guardian. My mother. Her scent was fire and stone, her thoughts like lava flowing under the earth, steady and watchful. "You are almost ready," she whispered without words. "Sleep, little ember. Grow strong." And I did. I grew bones and sinew, scales that shimmered in the dark like distant stars. I turned slowly in my egg, nudging gently against the limits of my small world. There were others, too. I could feel them, eggs near mine, pulsing with life. My clutchmates. I couldn't see them, but I dreamed of them often. One dreamed of water, another of snow. One crackled like lightning in its sleep. We were all dreaming together, seeds of the same fire, soon to be born. Then came the day the whispers grew louder. The mountain stirred with purpose. The fire beneath our nest surged hotter, and the wind outside howled like a call. I pushed. Once. Twice. My horned brow pressed against the inside of my egg. A tiny crack. The world trembled. The shell split open. Light poured in, red and gold and dazzling. I blinked for the first time, and it felt like seeing through liquid crystal. The cave walls around me glowed with the veins of molten stone. And there she was, my mother, vast and magnificent, her eyes like twin suns and her wings folded gently around the nest. I took my first breath. It was thick with heat and ash and the scent of molten stone. And yet it was soft, comforting. I sneezed a tiny spark. A low, rumbling purr echoed around me. "Welcome, Aetheris." That was the first time I heard my name. My legs were unsteady, my wings folded tightly against my sides, but I wobbled forward over shards of broken shell, glowing faintly under my paws. The world was enormous and humming with wonder. My clutchmates were stirring too, their own eggs cracking and opening one by one. The one who dreamed of snow blinked out with icy blue eyes. The one who dreamed of lightning sneezed and startled himself with a crackle of sparks. We were all there, together, blinking in the warmth of the firelight. Our mother wrapped her tail around us and lowered her massive head. "You are born of ember and ash," she rumbled, "but you are more than flame. Each of you holds a thread of the world's old magic. In time, you will learn what it means." I didn't understand her then. I only knew that I was awake, and the air hummed with energy. Every rock, every crack in the cave walls, every breath of wind outside whispered stories too old for words. That night, I curled beside my clutchmates, warm and small and safe. Our mother kept watch with her eyes half closed, wings curved like a roof above us. Outside, the stars blinked like distant fires. And I dreamed again, this time, of flight. Not the golden-winged giant from before, but me, Aetheris, rising above the caldera, smoke trailing from my wings, the world stretched out below me like an ancient song waiting to be sung. It would be a long time before I truly flew. But the dream was enough for now. The nest was warm, the stone pulsed gently, and the stars above blinked in time with my slowing breath. The days that followed my hatching were slow and golden, like warm honey dripping down the walls of the nest. I did not yet understand time as the elders did. Each moment was a whole world. A rumbling belly, a tumble with a clutchmate, the sparkle of firelight on the stone floor, the crack of cooled lava beneath my claws. My mind grew with every breath I took, and every hour the cave seemed wider. Our mother fed us with molten crystals and sizzling stones. They burst with heat and flavor, strange and sharp on the tongue. My favorite was brimberry, small, rock-like berries that grew deep in the craggy walls and exploded into blue fire when bitten. My tongue tingled for hours. My siblings and I learned to speak before we learned to run. We didn't use words like the two-legged creatures below the mountain. Our speech was ancient, woven of smoke, growls, sparks, and thought. When I wanted to ask my sister if she was afraid of the rumbling above, I showed her the image of cracking sky and trembling claws. She answered with the scent of courage and a snort of steam. But the day of the first flame was the beginning of something new. It began with a lesson. Our mother gathered us in the center of the nest. Her wings fanned the air like great banners of bronze and ash. She curled her long neck down so her great eyes, pools of magma, were level with our own. Her voice rumbled low and slow. "You carry flame inside you," she said. "But it is not just fire. It is your will, your spark, your truth." She opened her jaws. A thread of fire danced from her throat, thin, golden, like the strand of a comet. It didn't roar or scorch. It sang. We watched, breathless, as the flame danced in a spiral above us, then vanished with a whisper. You must learn to call it. Not from anger, not from fear, but from the place inside where your truth lives. We didn't understand, but something in her words stirred deep in me like a coal buried under ash, waiting for breath. One by one, she asked us to try. My brother Orvan, broad of shoulder and always the first to leap, stepped forward. He narrowed his eyes, puffed out his chest, and strained. A sputter, a hiccup, a brief pop of smoke. We laughed until he growled and chased us around the nest. My sister Vei was next. She closed her eyes. Her breath slowed. Then a spark danced from her nose and disappeared into the air. She opened one eye and grinned. Then it was my turn. I stepped into the circle. My tail curled unconsciously behind me. I didn't know where my truth lived. My thoughts buzzed like bees in a stone jar. What if I failed? What if I had no flame? I closed my eyes. I remembered the dream, flying above the caldera, the wind singing past my wings, the stars lighting my path. I imagined the warmth of the nest, the pulse of the volcano, my mother's voice. And then I felt it. Not in my chest, not in my throat, but behind my heart. A warmth, steady and slow, like a sun rising in the deep. I breathed out. The flame came not as a roar, not as a blaze, but as a whispering ribbon of blue fire. It curled through the air, danced between my claws, and vanished in a spark. Silence. Then a deep, pleased hum from my mother. She lowered her head and gently touched my brow with hers. "Aetheris," she said softly, "you have found the song of your fire." My clutchmates cheered and puffed sparks in the air. I laughed for the first time, a bubbling, crackling laugh that startled even me. That night, The nest was full of light. Little fires danced between us as we played. Orvan managed a full puff that scorched his own tail tip. He yelped, then laughed. Vei made shapes with her flames, swirling loops and hearts. We were dragons, no longer just hatchlings. We had breathed flame. Our mother watched from her perch above, silent, but I could feel her pride. It hung in the air like the scent of cedar smoke, warm and grounding. Later, after my clutchmates had curled into sleep, I stayed awake. I padded quietly to the edge of the nest, where the stone gave way to a ledge overlooking the open world. I looked out for the first time with eyes that saw beyond the cave. The night sky was wide and full of stars. I reached deep inside and called gently to the fire behind my heart. A soft flame curled from my nose, gold-tinged and steady. It didn't burn. It glowed. And for the first time, I wondered what lay beyond the mountain. Would I fly across deserts of glass? Would I learn the names of rivers? Would I find the ancient things our mother sometimes sang of in her sleep? The fire whispered yes. I curled into a hollow of warm stone, my breath slowing, and slept with that small flame still glowing inside me. The day I met the sky began with trembling paws and an impatient tail. I had dreamed of flying nearly every night since my first flame. Dreams where the clouds opened like silver doors, and I soared through them on wings I had not yet grown into. But dreaming of flight and leaping from a cliff were two very different things. Our mother said it was time. She said it the way she said all things, without question. Her voice was like stone splitting to reveal a vein of gold, heavy, final, beautiful. "You will not fly today," she said, standing tall on the ledge that overlooked the world. "But you will meet the wind. It must know your scent before it will carry you." I remember shivering. Not from fear, not entirely, but from something deeper, something like standing at the edge of a song you weren't sure you knew the words to. Vei was beside me, her scales catching the light like rippling moonlight on a lake. Orvan paced behind us, snorting impatiently, his claws clicking like thunder on the stone. The others murmured in quiet awe. None of us had ever left the nest before. Our nest was carved from the inside of an ancient caldera, deep within Mount Caraxes. But far above, past the glowing tunnels and spiraling vents of steam, there was the great rim, a circle of jagged stone that opened like a cracked eye to the sky. And today, we would climb to it. Our mother led us through the lava-lit corridors, her bulk barely squeezing through the winding paths. We climbed for what felt like hours, higher and higher, until the warmth of the molten world gave way to a cool wind that snuck in through cracks and crevices. Then we reached it. The wind hit me like a river. It roared over the edge of the crater and curled into the mountain's mouth like a curious ghost. I gasped. The scent of the world rushed in. Pine and rain and faraway snow. The wind tasted of freedom. And above, the sky. It was vast. I had seen it only in dreams, and the small circle of it above our nest. But here, standing on the rim, it stretched in every direction, blue, endless, alive. The sun floated like an ember caught in glass, and the clouds moved like slow ships on an unseen ocean. I stepped forward. The wind buffeted my wings, small as they were. I dug my claws into the stone. My heart beat faster. "Let it know you," my mother said, from somewhere behind me. I closed my eyes and breathed in the sky. And then, something strange happened. The wind answered. Not in words, not even in thoughts, but in a feeling, a ripple that passed over my scales and into my chest. It lifted the tiny down feathers between my scales, curled beneath my wings like it belonged there. It was ancient and wild, and somehow, it already knew my name. I opened my eyes and laughed. It wasn't a perfect sound, but the wind carried it, tossed it into the sky like a ribbon, and I watched it vanish into the blue. Orvan was already at the edge, growling at the gusts, flapping his wings too hard. He leapt, and the wind smacked him sideways. He yelped and scrambled back, singed pride in his eyes. "It does not obey," my mother called gently. "It dances. You must learn its rhythm." Vei stepped forward next. She didn't leap. She stood still, head high, and let the wind curl around her like a friend. Her wings fluttered gently. For a moment, she hovered just inches above the rock. Then she sank back down, smiling. I watched her. I watched the wind. And I remembered my dream again. The one where I became the sky. I spread my wings. They were too small, still feathered at the edges where true scales would grow, but I felt something shift. The fire inside me glowed softly. Not a burning flame, but a steady warmth, like the core of the sun. I stepped to the edge and whispered to the wind. It answered with a push. I leapt. For a moment, the world dropped away. The crater vanished. The mountain disappeared. There was only air, and sky, and me. I didn't fall. I didn't fly. I floated. The wind caught me like a lullaby, lifting me in a slow spiral, my wings trembling. I laughed again, a high, joyous sound that startled a flock of cloud wings soaring above. They cried out, wings flashing silver, and one dove beside me only for a breath before gliding away. Then the wind set me back on the rim, soft as a mother's sigh. I turned to find my mother watching. Her expression didn't change, but I saw something in her eyes. Pride, yes, but more. A knowing. She had flown like this once, long ago. That night, we curled together under the stars for the first time. The nest was far below, but here on the rim, the sky sang us to sleep. And in my dreams, I flew again, not above the clouds, but among them. The wind was no longer a stranger. It was an old friend, waiting for me to grow strong enough to soar. The sky had tasted me, and I had tasted the sky. But flying was not a skill earned in a day. My wings were still small, my bones still soft. The wind would carry me only in short glides, like a lullaby lifting a feather and setting it gently down. It was enough for now. We returned to the nest glowing with excitement. Orvan pouted the rest of the evening, snapping at embers and declaring that the wind was clearly broken. Vei, serene as moonlight, said nothing. She simply kept practicing, stretching her wings like sails and tilting her body to feel the shifting currents in the tunnels. As for me, I couldn't sleep. That night, the wind returned, not in dreams, but in truth. I was curled near the entrance to the nest, where the mountain breathed in long, slow sighs. The tunnel walls flickered with faint firelight. I was just beginning to drift when something changed. A rustle, a whisper, a soft laugh, light as mist on water. I opened one eye. The air shimmered. At first, I thought it was a dream. A shape coiled through the stone passage, flickering like smoke made of moonlight. It danced, dipping and spinning, not touching the ground. Then another, and another. Spirits. They weren't dragons. They weren't solid at all. They were air-made thought, wind-given form. Each moved like a song being written with no pen, graceful, unpredictable, impossible. Some were long and sinuous, trailing glittering tails behind them. Others were small and round, tumbling like playful leaves. I watched, frozen in awe. Then, one noticed me. It drifted closer, its form pulsing with pale blue light. Two glowing orbs blinked where eyes might have been. It didn't speak, but it felt like a question. I tilted my head, not quite sure what to do. "Hello," I whispered aloud. The spirit twirled, looping twice in the air, then zipped behind my horns and darted out toward the cave mouth. It wanted me to follow. I hesitated. The others were still asleep, and I could feel our mother's warm presence, curled in the deep, her breath slow and even. I glanced back once, then padded quietly out into the tunnel. The spirit glided ahead, pausing whenever I slowed, leading me upward, toward the rim once more. The night sky was clear, stars dusted thick as frost, and the wind had a playful nip to it, like it knew something I didn't. The spirit led me along the edge of the crater, higher than we'd ever climbed before, to a narrow ridge where stones jutted like dragon teeth. There, in the wind's embrace, the spirits waited, all of them. Dozens. Maybe more. They danced in a slow spiral above the rim, each glowing with its own soft-hued blue, silver, violet, even green. They moved in silent chorus, creating ripples in the air like rings in a pond. And then they began to sing. Not with voices, but with wind. It wasn't a melody I could hum, not exactly. It was the sound of breeze through pine needles, the moan of gusts in the canyons, the hush of distant rainfall. All woven together into a music that made my scales tingle. I closed my eyes and breathed it in. And I understood. The wind was not a force. It was a language. It had moods, emotions, stories. It remembered things. 1,000 wings that had flown before me. The storm that broke an old mountain's back. The whisper of a promise carried from one valley to another. The spirit that had led me danced closer. It brushed my snout with a swirl of cool air and left something behind, not a word, not even a thought. A sense. Like a seed planted in my chest. I exhaled, and a spiral of gold flame slipped out, flickering in time with the windsong. It did not roar or flare. It danced with the spirits. They responded in kind. One by one, they twirled around me, brushing my wings, my tail, my horns. It was not a greeting. It was a welcome. I was no longer a stranger. They knew me. And then, as quickly as they came, they vanished. Caught on a sudden breeze, lifted into the stars, scattered across the sky like sparks from a fire. The wind fell silent. I stood alone on the ridge, breathless, heart glowing like a coal cradled in snow. Slowly, I turned and made my way back down to the nest, the song still humming in my bones. When I finally curled beside my clutchmates, the cave felt warmer, quieter. The world felt bigger. And I, Aetheris, felt changed. I had met the spirits of the wind, and they had taught me to listen. There are some flavors that stay with you forever. Brimberries, yes. The tang of lightning crystal. Even the comforting char of fireroot bark, cracked and hissing in our teeth. But those were of the mountain. Familiar. Close. The stars had a flavor all their own. It was Vei who first said it aloud, her voice hushed in the glow of our sleeping nest. They taste like old dreams, she whispered, eyes wide and luminous in the dark. Orvan scoffed. Stars don't taste like anything. They're just fire, like the sun. No, I said slowly, they're colder than fire. They hum. That's when Vei and I looked at each other, and we knew. We'd both felt it. That strange, humming silence in our bones when we watched the sky. It wasn't just light. It was a call, and it wanted to be answered. That night, I returned to the edge of the crater alone. The wind had already begun to recognize my scent, brushing against my scales like an old friend. I closed my eyes and let it push me, tilt me, carry me just a little. Far above, the stars blinked in patterns I had never been taught but somehow understood. They were stories in slow motion, painted across centuries. They called not in words but in rhythms. If I breathed just right, I could feel them settle into my chest. And that's when I saw her. Not a dragon, not a wind spirit, a being made of starlight. She drifted down from the sky as though she had always belonged to it. woven from moonlight and comet dust. She had no wings, no claws, no face I could name, but I knew her. She hovered a length away, surrounded by a halo of soft, slow-moving sparks. The crater wind did not disturb her. She was part of it, yet untouched by it. "You are curious," came a voice, not from her, but from within me. My scales bristled. "Are you a star?" "A shard," she replied. "A piece of an old sky that remembers its dreams." That was how the stars tasted, I realized. Like something ancient remembering something beautiful. "I want to fly," I said. "Then you must learn to fall," she answered. She reached out, not with a hand, but with a thread of light. It drifted toward my snout, brushing it lightly, like the softest smoke. And suddenly, I was not in the crater. I was falling. Falling through clouds, through silence, through color. The wind roared past me, but I wasn't afraid. Below me was the curve of the world, gold and blue and endless. I was a spark dropped into the ocean of sky. Then I rose. Wings outstretched, larger, stronger than I remembered, I caught an updraft and spiraled through the stars. I tasted them. They were like crystallized memory. Sweet, sharp, ancient. One burst on my tongue and filled me with the echo of a forgotten lullaby sung by dragons who had long since vanished into myth. I woke gasping. Back in the crater. No wind. No star being. Only Vei beside me, blinking sleepily. "You saw her too, didn't you?" I nodded. She smiled, slow and sure. "The star dreamer. We didn't tell Orvan. He wasn't ready yet. Not because he wasn't brave, he was the bravest of us, but because he hadn't learned to be still. And stillness, we were learning, was the only way to taste the stars." In the days that followed, Vei and I returned to the crater every night. The star dreamer didn't always come. Sometimes, the wind spirits danced alone. Sometimes, only silence. But every time, we listened. And every time, the stars taught us a little more. They told us of the dragons who once shaped the clouds, drawing maps with their tails. Of fire that burned cold and time that sang. Of sky temples that drifted too high and shattered into constellations. One night, I asked aloud, "Why do you speak to me?" And from the dark, a voice answered gently, "Because you are becoming." It wasn't until much later, years later, perhaps, that I truly understood what the stars had meant. But for now, I curled beside my sister, the taste of dreams still clinging to my tongue, and let the stars watch over us as we drifted to sleep. Thunder came before the rain. That was something our mother taught us, not in words, but in the way she stood still when the clouds began to gather, her wings folded tightly along her sides, her gaze raised to the heavens. She had seen many storms, and though they did not frighten her, they humbled her. "Thunder speaks before the sky weeps," she would say. We had heard thunder before, of course, rumbling in the distance, far off over the mountain peaks or deep in the belly of Caraxes. But one morning, as we stretched our wings by the crater's rim, the clouds came closer. Too close. Dark and low, they rolled over the horizon like a living wall. The wind changed, cooler, faster, more urgent. It whispered warnings through the tunnels. And then, the roar. Not a growl, not a grumble, but a crack, sharp and sudden, that split the air and rattled the stone beneath our claws. Orvan leapt back, his spines flaring. "What was that?" he cried, spinning. "Thunder," Vei said calmly, eyes on the sky. But this was not the distant thunder of before. This was alive. Our mother appeared behind us, her form silhouetted against the cave mouth. Inside, she commanded. "Now." We obeyed, most of us. I paused at the rim, staring into the churning dark. Something called to me. Not with a voice, but a pressure, a rhythm. It was like the song of the wind spirits, but deeper, wilder, unrefined. A different kind of voice in the sky. I felt it in my chest, low and steady, like a heartbeat that did not belong to me. My tail curled, and my wings pressed close, as if trying to listen. "Come," Mother growled. "The sky has teeth today." Reluctantly, I turned and followed her into the depths of the mountain. The storm came fast. Rain hammered the crater's edge, hissing against stone and turning ash to rivers. Lightning forked above us, white-hot veins lashing the sky. Thunder cracked again and again, each time louder, closer, as though something was searching. Inside, we watched. Mother did not sleep. She stood near the entrance, her eyes glowing faintly, her body like a statue carved from molten rock. We nestled together, trembling as thunder rattled the cave. "Why does it sound angry?" Vei whispered. "It isn't," Mother said softly. "It's alive. And alive things speak." "But what is it saying?" I asked. Her gaze flicked to me, and her expression softened. "That depends on who is listening." That night, I dreamed not of stars, but of storms. In my sleep, I flew through blackened skies, my wings slicing through clouds that twisted like beasts. Lightning raced along my spine, and my breath came in sparks. I dove through a vortex of rain and wind, and somewhere in that swirling chaos, I laughed. I awoke gasping, chest alight with energy I couldn't name. The storm was gone, its memory left in puddles and broken branches. But in its wake, the world smelled different, cleansed. Awake. The sky, too, seemed changed, as if it had spoken its mind and was finally at peace. The wind spirits returned that evening, slower than usual, their forms trailing static. They did not dance. They drifted, like smoke rising after fire. One paused beside me, its shimmer less steady than before. I reached out, and it brushed against my horn. A spark leapt between us, and for a single breath, I saw a dragon made of storm clouds, wings the width of valleys, eyes like twin suns flickering behind mist. It flew through skies torn by lightning, leaving thunder in its wake. It was not a memory. It was a warning. I stumbled back. The spirit faded, its light dimming, and I was left with a name that echoed in my thoughts, Scathros. I whispered it aloud, and the wind stiffened. Not a myth. Not a legend. A force. A dragon older than mountains, who rode the storms and commanded thunder, not just listened to it. Scathros had once danced with the wind spirits. Now he hunted them. I didn't sleep that night. For the first time, I understood. The sky had beauty, yes, but it also had teeth. Just like Mother said. And one day, I would have to face it. Not as a hatchling, not as a dreamer, but as a dragon with wings strong enough to stand inside a storm. Flame had always been my friend. From the moment I cracked my shell and felt the warmth of the ember nest around me, I had trusted the fire. It gave us light in the tunnels. It curled around our mother's breath like smoke trailing from a lullaby. It danced when we were happy, flickering from our mouths in harmless sparks. But there are flames that burn without warmth. Flames that do not feed but hunger. And I would soon learn their name. It began with a silence. The wind spirits vanished. Not all at once. But over the course of days, we noticed their absence. No shimmer at dusk. No laughter on the breeze. Even the crater winds, once lively and mischievous, grew still, sluggish. Vei noticed first. "The air feels hollow," she said one night. Orvan, still sore from a failed gliding lesson, just grunted. "Good. Less wind means less crashing." But I knew what she meant. Something was missing, like a string plucked from a song we hadn't realized was there. I went to the rim that night alone. No spirits. No dance. Just wind, slow and heavy, brushing the ground like it carried grief. I closed my eyes and tried to reach them the way I had before, breathing in, listening, offering a curl of flame. But my fire sputtered. It flickered, turned cold at the edges, and fell into ash before it reached the sky. My flame had never failed me before. Troubled, I returned to the tunnels. I curled beside the others, but sleep would not come. In my mind, I saw the vision the spirit had given me days ago, Scathros, the dragon of thunder. His wings like shadowed storm clouds. His gaze like lightning behind smoke. What if he had come? What if he had taken the wind? The next morning, I asked Mother. She did not answer right away. Instead, she walked with me down the deeper tunnels, past the ember pools and glowing root threads, into a chamber I had never seen before. It was dark. No light. No warmth. Only cold stone and silence. "This is the hollow flame," she said at last. I blinked. "But there's nothing here." "Exactly," she replied. "Once, it burned. Brighter than any other fire. But it was devoured." "By Scathros?" "No. By doubt." I frowned. "I don't understand." She lay down beside the empty basin at the heart of the chamber. Its sides were scorched, but cold. The hollow flame was created by dragons who feared their own power. They fed it not with hope, but with control. They caged the wind, imprisoned stars, forced the skies to obey them. And it worked. I asked, breath-catching. "For a time. But fire born of fear burns inward." I swallowed, glancing at the empty basin again. Is that what's happening to me? My fire, it didn't work. Mother studied me with calm, golden eyes. "Do you fear it?" I hesitated. "I fear losing it," I admitted. "That's where the hollow flame begins," she said quietly. We sat in silence a while longer. Then she stood. "Come." She led me out of the chamber and back to the tunnel mouth. The sky was cloudy again, but no storm. Just a grey veil between us and the stars. "Fire is not only destruction," she said. "It is memory. It is will." With that, she tilted her head back and exhaled a long plume of gold fire into the sky. It spiraled and danced, rising until it touched the clouds. It did not burn them. It lit them. I took a breath and tried. At first, nothing. But then, I remembered. The first time I saw a brimberry spark between my claws. The warmth of Vei pressed beside me on a cold night. The laughter of wind spirits spiraling around my horns. And then, flame. It burst from my throat, not cold, not angry, but true. It shone like starlight, soft and steady, and the air trembled with its voice. Mother smiled. "It lives." And I knew then, the hollow flame is not the end of fire, it is the test. Only when you burn with your own light, without fear or pride or pressure, can the true flame rise. That night, as I curled once more in the nest, my chest glowed softly with embers that did not fade. The wind did not return, but I was ready. There was a path in the sky, not made of stone, not carved by claws or built by dragons. It was made of wind and light, of currents that twisted like ribbons and whispered directions only some could hear. I first saw it the morning after the hollow flame lesson. The sky had cleared. Pale blue streaked with gold. A hush clung to everything, as if the world itself was holding its breath. And above me, a spiral. It shimmered faintly, made of air that bent the light in curling, sweeping loops that stretched from the horizon to a point high above the tallest clouds. If I tilted my head just right, I could see it like the ghost of a great staircase, spinning into the heavens. I called for Vei and Orvan. Vei saw it immediately, eyes wide. "The spiral path," she whispered. "I read about it in the old root scrolls. It leads to the upper ether." "The what now?" Orvan grunted, blinking against the glare. The part of the sky where stories live, she explained. Where the stars begin. Where dragons go when they're ready to fly, not just through air, but through memory. I stared up at the spiral. It pulsed with soft, patient light. I think it's calling. No way, Orvan said, stepping back. We can barely glide from one ledge to another without eating rock. You want to climb the sky, but I had already taken a step forward. The wind shifted, and then I heard it, quiet at first, like the song of the wind spirits, but deeper, layered with voices from long ago. One breath, one beat, one wing. The spiral sang in rhythm, a melody without words, but filled with meaning. I crouched, my claws digging into the stone. My heart pounded. Don't be foolish. Orvan snapped, panic flaring in his voice. That's not for us. That's for the elders. But I wasn't listening anymore. I leapt. The wind caught me. Not harshly, gently. It lifted me in a spiral, guiding me to the edge of the path I could barely see. My wings trembled, but I followed the current, tilting this way and that, just as the wind wanted. Below me, Vei cried out my name. Orvan cursed loudly and started running along the ridge, tracking my ascent. But I kept climbing. And with each loop, the air grew clearer, brighter. Not just in light, but in sound. I could hear stories being sung in the clouds, the memory of dragons who had once flown these currents, each one leaving behind a note in the great song. I saw shapes move within the wind, ghost wings, half-faded horns, smiling eyes. They weren't watching me. They were welcoming me. You've heard, said a voice near my ear. I turned mid-glide and saw the Star Dreamer again. Fainter now, woven from mist and starlight, but unmistakable. I'm not ready, I told her. You are becoming, she said once more. I wanted to ask what came next, but the current shifted. A roar echoed above me, not thunder. Wings. And then the sky shook. A blast of force slammed into the spiral, shattering part of the path. The wind screamed. The light turned dark. From above, a shadow spiraled down. A shape of smoke and claw and storm. Scathros. I had only seen his echo in visions. Now, I saw his truth. Massive wings eclipsed the sun. Lightning crackled in the grooves of his scales. He did not roar, he rumbled, like a mountain splitting open. I froze in the sky, paralyzed mid-glide. He looked at me, through me. Not with anger, not with curiosity, with judgment. The spiral bent around his presence. The stories in the wind fell silent. The current faltered and I fell. I tumbled from the path, spinning wildly. The wind tried to catch me, but I couldn't right myself. The mountain rushed up beneath me, but before I hit, wings. Not mine, Orvan's. He'd launched himself after me, catching me in a brutal, clumsy dive that left us both crashing hard against the outer ledge of the crater. We tumbled in a mess of limbs, hissing and wheezing. You idiot, he gasped, wings twitching. I didn't answer. Above us, the spiral path began to fade. Not disappear, just recede. Retreating into memory. The Star Dreamer's voice echoed faintly in my thoughts. The sky tests the ready, and sometimes, readiness means knowing when to fall. Vei reached us moments later, eyes wide with worry and wonder. She said nothing, only curled around us. And there, bruised but breathing, we lay in silence. The spiral sky path was gone, but it would return. And next time, we would fly it together. The spiral was gone, but it had left something behind. Not just in my thoughts, where the echo of the windsong still stirred, but in the crater itself. The morning after my fall, the ash pools glowed differently. The fire veins in the stone pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm. The wind, though still quiet, felt expectant. Something was waking. When Mother returned from her nightly hunt, she sniffed the air, narrowed her golden eyes, and said only one word: "It's time." We didn't ask what she meant. We followed her. Down through the main tunnel, past the familiar echo chambers and molten pools, to a part of the mountain we had never been allowed to explore. The stone here was older, the air heavier. My steps felt weighted, as though my claws pressed into memory rather than rock. Finally, we came to a great cavern shaped like a hollow heart. Its walls were smooth and dark, etched with the claw marks of dragons long gone. Embers hung in the air like drifting fireflies, and a faint, continuous hum filled the space, no louder than a breath, but impossible to ignore. This was not a place for games or gliding practice. This was sacred. "The Ember trials begin today," Mother said, her voice low and deep. Orvan sat straighter. Vei's frills tensed. I swallowed. "You each must pass through flame," she continued, "but not the kind you know. This is not about breath or battle. This is a fire that tests your spirit." She turned her gaze to me. "You already know a bit of it. You met it in the hollow flame. But now you will face it fully. What happens if we fail?" Orvan asked, quietly. "You don't fail," she replied. "You simply wait until you're ready." She stepped aside, revealing 3 archways in the stone behind her, each glowing with a different hue. One flickered gold, another burned red, and the last pulsed deep violet. The fire that lived in those thresholds wasn't natural flame. It didn't cast heat. It cast truth. "The trial chooses you," Mother said. "Not the other way around." I didn't think. I felt. My feet carried me toward the gold-lit arch. As I stepped near, the flame brightened just slightly and then parted like a curtain. The air within was silent, and I stepped through. Instantly, everything changed. I wasn't in the mountain anymore. I stood atop a field of glass, beneath a starless sky. The world stretched in all directions, shimmering and still. No wind. No sound. Just me, and my reflection, cast beneath my claws. But the reflection was wrong. It wasn't me. It was a version of me, bigger, darker, with eyes like scorched coals and wings that cracked the sky. It didn't blink. It didn't breathe. And then it moved. "Who are you?" it asked. Its voice was mine, but twisted. "I'm Ember," I replied. "Are you?" I frowned. "I am a dragon." "Are you?" it asked again. It stepped forward. I mirrored it. Or it mirrored me. "You fall from the sky," it said. "You doubt your fire. You fear the storm. You walk in your mother's shadow." "That's not all I am," I said, trying to hold my ground. "But it is part," it whispered. "You fear being less." I clenched my jaw. "I also hope." It tilted its head. "Then show me." The world around us cracked, glass beneath our claws shattered, revealing an abyss of molten gold beneath. Flame rose, not to consume, but to reveal. I saw visions in the fire, Vei's calm courage, Orvan's fierce loyalty, my first spark. My fear when the spiral shattered, my strength when I rose again, my mother's quiet pride, the wind spirits circling my horns, my laughter when I first glided without falling. They spun together, weaving a shape in the flame, not a mirror, not a monster. Me, imperfect, growing, becoming. The reflection vanished. The flame dimmed, and I stood once more in the golden chamber. Mother was there. She nodded once. Vei stepped out from the red arch moments later, her eyes full of tears and strength. Orvan came last, breathless and wide-eyed, as though he'd fought a battle and won. We said nothing. We didn't have to. Our trials had changed us. Not into something new, but into something more true. That night, as we lay beneath the stars, the wind spirits returned, soft and slow. They didn't dance. They simply curled around us, as if to say, "We see you." The spiral had not returned. But when it did, we would be ready. The night after the Ember trials was unlike any I had ever known. The crater was silent, no rustle of wind spirits, no flicker of embers. Even the stars seemed to hold their breath behind thick clouds, leaving the sky blank and empty. I called it the skyless dream. As I nestled in the nest, my mind swirled with memories and questions. The Ember trials had shown me much, my fears, my hopes, the truth of who I was becoming. But it had also left a hollow space, a silence that was neither empty nor peaceful, but heavy and waiting. I closed my eyes, hoping sleep would bring answers. Instead, I found myself drifting into a dream unlike any before. I stood on a plain of stone that stretched beyond sight, the sky above a flat, unbroken grey. There were no stars, no wind, no light. But in the distance, I saw a flicker, a faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat. I began to walk toward it. As I approached, the glow took shape, a great figure made of shifting smoke and fire, its eyes like molten gold. "Who are you?" I asked. "I am the dream of the sky," it said, voice deep and echoing. "What is the skyless dream?" I asked. The figure's form rippled. "It is the space between stars, the silence between songs. It is where dreams are forged and broken, where dragons face their true selves." I shivered, feeling the weight of its gaze. "Why am I here?" I whispered. "Because you are at a crossroads," the dream replied. "The spiral path calls to you still, but you must choose your own way." I looked down at my claws. "I don't know if I'm ready." The dream smiled, a flicker of flame in the darkness. "Readiness is not given. It is earned. And sometimes, it is found in the fall." I felt a sudden rush of wind, and then I was soaring. Not through the spiral, but through a sky of shadow and light, twisting and turning like a ribbon. I realized then, the skyless dream was not a place, but a choice. To fly the path others carved, or to make my own. To fear the unknown, or to embrace it. To be the dragon I was told to be, or the one I chose to become. When I awoke, the clouds had parted. The stars shone brightly, and the wind whispered softly through the crater. The spiral path had returned. And so had my fire. The morning air was crisp and cool, carrying with it the faint scent of frost and pine. As I stepped out into the light, the spiral path shimmered faintly overhead, waiting, patient, like a friend who knew I would return. Mother watched from the ridge, her eyes reflecting the dawn. Vei and Orvan stood beside her, quiet but alert. The Ember trials had changed us all, but the journey was far from over. "Today," Mother said, her voice steady, "you will learn to fly with your memories." I blinked. "Fly with memories?" She nodded. "The spiral is more than a path in the sky. It is a tapestry woven from the stories of all dragons who have flown before you. To glide it, you must carry their memories in your wings." Vei's eyes sparkled. "Like the wind spirits?" "Exactly," Mother replied. "They are the echoes of memory, the breath of dragons past. To summon them, you must remember not only your own story but theirs as well." I closed my eyes, drawing a deep breath. I thought of the first ember spark I had ever felt, flickering warm between my claws. Of Mother's gentle voice, guiding me through the tunnels. Of Vei's fearless heart, always pushing forward. Of Orvan's stubborn strength, never giving up. And then, beyond my own memories, I reached deeper. I saw flashes of dragons I had never met, a great silver dragon who had soared through storms, a tiny flame-winged hatchling who had danced among flowers, an ancient dragon whose roar had shaken mountains. Their stories blended with mine, weaving a tapestry of light and shadow, courage and doubt. When I opened my eyes, the wind had returned. Soft at first, then rising, swirling in gentle currents around my wings. I spread my wings wide, feeling the pull of the spiral once more. This time, the path was alive with voices, whispers of dragons long gone, guiding me, urging me forward. I leapt. The wind caught me, lifting me higher than before. I felt the memory of each dragon in my bones, their strength fueling my flight. The spiral twisted and turned, but I was no longer afraid. With each glide, I grew stronger, my wings carrying not just my body but the weight of stories and dreams. Vei and Orvan followed, their own wings alight with memory. Mother smiled, watching us soar. We were no longer just young dragons learning to fly. We were part of something greater, a living song woven through time. And as the sun rose, painting the sky in gold and crimson, I knew the spiral path was not just a journey through the air. It was a journey through the heart. The day began quietly, with the usual warmth of the sun washing over the crater, but by midday, the sky darkened as if shadowed by an unseen hand. A low rumble echoed through the mountain, subtle at first, then growing into a deep, rolling roar. Mother's eyes narrowed. The ember storm is coming. I shivered. The ember storm was a rare and fierce test, a tempest born of fire and wind that swept across the skies like a wild dragon unleashed. Vei's scales gleamed with determination. Orvan flexed his claws. We had heard stories of dragons lost to the storm, of courage forged in its flames. But none of us had faced it ourselves. Mother gathered us at the edge of the crater, where the wind whistled sharply. "This storm will test your wings, your spirit, your very fire," she said. "You must fly through it, not against it. Let it shape you, but do not let it consume you." The sky cracked open, and the first embers fell. Glowing sparks that danced like fireflies in the gusting wind. I spread my wings, feeling the turbulent air buffet against my scales. The spiral path shimmered faintly above, a fragile thread of light amidst the growing darkness. Taking a deep breath, I launched myself upward. The wind grabbed me fiercely, twisting and turning, but I held fast. The embers swirled around like a fiery storm, searing hot yet strangely alive. Voices rose in the tempest. A chorus of ancient dragons, their roars mingling with the crackling flame. The storm was wild, unpredictable, and beautiful. At moments, I was thrown off course, spiraling in dizzying loops. But I remembered Mother's words. I let the storm guide me, feeling its fire mingle with my own. My wings beat strong against the roaring gale. Vei and Orvan followed, their determination burning bright. We moved as one through the chaos, finding rhythm in the wild dance. When the storm finally passed, the sky was clear once more. We descended, hearts pounding, scales scorched but spirits alight. Mother greeted us with a proud smile. "You have flown the ember storm and lived," she said softly. "You are becoming true dragons." As we rested beneath the calming sky, I realized the storm had changed me, not just in strength, but in understanding. To fly was not to conquer the sky, but to move with it, embracing fire and wind, light and shadow. The spiral path awaited, and I was ready. The quiet after the ember storm felt almost sacred. The mountain seemed to breathe a slow, steady sigh, as if grateful for the calm. But inside me, a new flame was kindling, one that no wind or storm could extinguish. Mother had called it the fire within. It was not the blaze I could breathe from my throat, nor the sparks that danced along my scales. It was something deeper, an ember nestled in the core of my spirit. One morning, as dawn painted the sky with soft pinks and golds, Mother took me to the highest peak of our mountain. The air was thin and sharp, and the world stretched out beneath us like a vast canvas. "Look closely," she said. I saw the valley below, the rivers like silver threads, the forests like a patchwork of emerald and shadow. And then I saw something else, tiny glimmers of light, scattered and faint. "The fire within is not just yours alone," Mother whispered. "It connects all dragons, past and present. It is the heart of our kind." I felt a warmth spread through my chest, a steady pulse that seemed to echo in time with the mountain itself. Mother reached out and brushed her claw gently against mine. "To awaken it," she said, "you must first understand yourself. Your fears, your hopes, your dreams." I thought of the spiral, the skyless dream, the ember storm, all the moments that had shaped me. "Close your eyes," she said. I did. Inside the darkness, I saw my own flame flicker. It was small, fragile, but bright. I reached out with my mind, feeling the pulse grow stronger. Visions appeared, my childhood play in the ash fields, the lessons from Mother, the laughter with Vei and Orvan. And beneath it all, a steady rhythm, my own heartbeat, steady and sure. Opening my eyes, I saw Mother smile. "You carry the fire of many, but the brightest flame is the one you keep alive within yourself." From that day, I practiced nurturing the fire within. In moments of doubt, I would close my eyes and feel its warmth. In times of joy, it would flare bright and wild. It was not just a source of power, but a guide, a light through the shadows. And as the days passed, I understood that being a dragon was more than scales and wings. It was a journey of the spirit. The fire within was mine to tend, and it would burn long after the mountain's embers faded. The mountain was a world of fire and stone, but beyond its peaks lay places few dragons had ever seen. Mother spoke of a secret place called the Hidden Valley, a sanctuary where the oldest trees whispered stories and the air shimmered with magic older than time. One morning, with the sky painted in soft dawn hues, we set out to find it. The journey was long, winding through narrow crevices and over jagged cliffs that tested our wings. Vei led with fearless enthusiasm, Orvan followed with steady determination, and I took in every breath of the cool air, feeling a mix of excitement and reverence. At last, we reached a narrow passage covered in thick vines and glowing moss. Beyond it, the world opened into a vast valley bathed in gentle light. The air smelled of earth and rain, and the trees stretched tall, their leaves humming with ancient power. We landed softly among the roots, feeling the pulse of the valley beneath us. Mother's voice was low. "This place holds the memories of dragons who came before us. It is a place of learning and reflection." As we explored, I noticed shimmering pools that mirrored not just our reflections, but scenes from the past. I saw dragons soaring above seas of clouds, crafting songs with their fire, and guarding the balance between sky and earth. One pool showed a dragon much like me, young and uncertain, yet brave. I touched the water, feeling a warmth spread through my claws. The valley seemed to breathe with life, its magic weaving around us like a gentle embrace. We spent days learning from the valley's wisdom, listening to the silent stories and letting the ancient magic seep into our bones. Here, I realized that being a dragon was part of a vast story, one of connection, courage, and endless discovery. The Hidden Valley was more than a place. It was a reminder that even as we grow, we are never alone. As we prepared to leave, the valley whispered farewell. A soft promise that its magic would always be with us. With hearts full and wings strong, we took to the skies once more. The spiral path awaited, shining bright, and we were ready to follow it, wherever it might lead. The Hidden Valley had settled deep within my spirit, its quiet magic a steady glow even in the darkest moments. Yet, as the days passed, I began to feel a new stirring, a whisper carried on the wind that called me beyond the mountain's edge. The horizon beckoned. It was a silent call at first, like the soft murmur of a distant stream. But it grew stronger, a pulse beneath my scales that tugged me toward unknown skies. Mother noticed the change in me during our morning flights. "Do you hear it?" she asked one dawn, her eyes reflecting the first light. I nodded, unsure how to explain the restless longing. "The call of the horizon," she said softly. "It is the song of all dragons who seek more than the nest, the mountain, the familiar. It calls you to explore, to learn, to find your place beyond the known." Vei and Orvan shared my excitement and fear. Together, we made a pact, to answer the call not as uncertain hatchlings, but as young dragons ready to face the world. The morning we left was golden and still. I took one last look at the crater, the spiral path glimmering like a ribbon in the sky. Then, with a strong beat of my wings, I soared toward the horizon. The air was fresh and vast, filled with possibilities. Clouds drifted like islands in a sea of blue, and the wind carried scents of forests, rivers, and distant fires. Every beat of my wings felt like a step into a new story. As we flew farther, the world unfolded beneath us in breathtaking scenes, rolling hills carpeted with wildflowers, sparkling lakes that mirrored the sun, and ancient forests humming with life. We met other creatures, curious and wise. Eagles with sharp eyes, deer that watched with gentle grace, and even a band of playful foxes who danced in the grass below. Each encounter was a lesson in kindness, courage, and the endless wonder of the world. At night, beneath a canopy of stars, we shared stories of our dreams and fears, finding strength in our friendship and the call that bound us. The horizon was no longer just a distant line, it was a promise. A promise that growth meant moving forward, embracing the unknown, and trusting in the fire within. And as the first light of dawn touched the sky, I knew this was only the beginning. The world was vast, full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. And I was ready to find them all. The days following our departure from the mountain felt like the unfolding of a great song, a melody that stretched across the sky, carried by the beating of our wings and the whispering wind. With every mile we traveled, the world seemed to sing back to us, echoing our journeys with stories hidden in the rustling leaves, the murmuring rivers, and the call of distant peaks. It was during one such flight that I began to hear the echoes of flight. Not merely the sound of wings slicing through air, but a resonance that stirred deep within my chest. Mother had told me once, the flight of a dragon leaves a trace beyond sight and sound. It is the echo of your spirit, carried across time and space. I hadn't understood then. But now, soaring high above the valleys and forests, I felt it clearly. Each flap of my wings sent ripples through the air, a wave of energy that connected me to every dragon who had flown before, and every one yet to come. The echoes mingled with the wind's song, forming patterns only the heart could hear. We traveled through skies painted with the colors of dusk and dawn, each moment imprinting new notes on the symphony of our flight. Sometimes, the echoes came as whispers. Soft memories of past flights, gentle encouragements from ancestors who had braved storms and soared over distant lands. Other times, they roared like thunder, urging us onward through challenges, reminding us of our strength. One evening, as twilight melted into night, Vei and I hovered over a quiet lake. The surface mirrored the stars, and in that stillness, I felt the echoes wrap around me like a comforting cloak. I realized that flying was more than moving through space. It was a conversation, a timeless exchange between dragon and sky, between heart and horizon. The echoes were a reminder that we never truly flew alone. Our wings carried not just our bodies, but our hopes, our fears, and the dreams of those who had flown before us. And as the stars shimmered above, I understood that my own echo would one day join that eternal song. The spiral path was still ahead. But for the first time, the path felt less like a journey of uncertainty, and more like a dance of connection. The echoes of flight would guide me always. The spiral path had always been a beacon, an endless ribbon twisting through the sky, mysterious and inviting. But now, after so many flights and countless moments of quiet reflection, I sensed there was more to it than I had ever imagined. Mother's words came back to me, like the gentle echo of a forgotten song. "The heart of the spiral is not a place," she had said softly. "It is the center of your journey, the moment when you truly become who you are." One morning, as the sun painted the clouds in hues of lavender and gold, I found myself alone on a high ridge, the spiral path glowing faintly above. I took a deep breath and lifted my wings. As I ascended, the air shifted, soft and warm, filled with a light that seemed to pulse in time with my own heartbeat. The spiral path drew me closer, its curves wrapping around me like the embrace of old friends. I closed my eyes and let myself drift into the center of the spiral. In that stillness, I saw visions, flashes of my past flights, the faces of those I loved, the storms I had weathered, and the fires I had kindled within. But there was something else, a deep, glowing core, shining brighter than any flame I had ever known. It was the heart of the spiral, the wellspring of dragonkind's spirit. I felt my own flame merge with it, growing warm and steady. The fears that had once held me back melted away, replaced by a quiet strength. I was no longer just a young dragon learning to fly. I was part of a greater story, one that spiraled through time and space, weaving every dragon's journey into a single, eternal dance. As I opened my eyes, the spiral path pulsed with life, guiding me forward. I spread my wings wide, ready to follow it wherever it might lead. The heart of the spiral was within me, and it would light my way, always. The first light of dawn crept gently over the mountain peaks, bathing the world in soft gold and rose. The air was still and cool, carrying the scent of new beginnings. It was a morning unlike any I had known, a day that marked the close of one journey and the beginning of another. I stood on the highest ridge, the spiral path unfurling endlessly above me, a shimmering ribbon of possibility and hope. The memories of every flight, every ember's spark, every whisper of wind and shadow, gathered within me like a tapestry woven from 1,000 threads. Vei and Orvan joined me, their eyes bright with the same quiet joy and reverence I felt deep in my bones. We had come far, through storms, valleys hidden and wide, echoes of flight and the heart of the spiral. Together, we had grown from hatchlings uncertain of the sky to dragons ready to carve our own paths. Mother watched from below, her gaze filled with pride and gentle encouragement. "Today," she said, "you take your place among the stars and the winds. Your wings are strong. Your fire burns bright. And your hearts carry the wisdom of all who have flown before." I spread my wings wide, feeling the familiar rush of air beneath the scales. The fire within stirred, steady and fierce, a light that no darkness could dim. The spiral path shimmered in response, inviting me forward. With a powerful beat, I launched into the sky. The wind embraced me, lifting me higher, carrying me beyond the mountaintops and the horizons I had once only dreamed of reaching. Around me, the sky blazed with dawn's colors, fiery reds and soft pinks blending into endless blue. I soared, free and unbound. The echoes of flight sang in my ears, the voices of dragons past and future, weaving a song of courage, hope, and endless discovery. Vei and Orvan followed close, our wings beating in harmony as we traced the spiral's endless dance. In that moment, I understood the truth Mother had shown me. To fly was not just to move through the sky, but to journey within, to carry the light of the past and the promise of tomorrow. The world stretched vast and inviting before me, a canvas for dreams yet to be dreamed. And as the sun rose higher, warming my scales and lighting my path, I knew my story was only beginning. With wings of dawn, I would soar. Thank you for listening to this light story. If you enjoyed this lovely tale, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Light Story Club will be here for when you want to listen to another chronicle to help you rest. Goodbye for now.